Well, thank you very much, Greg, and good afternoon. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to join you at this second Congress of Business. The University of Glasgow, as Greg mentioned, is very proud to partner with the Chamber of Commerce and the City to support the Congress of Business to deliver our common goal, which is accelerating action for a sustainable future. I was asked earlier why that is, and I think one of the essential things is that it brings so many different stakeholders together. It's not just businesses, it's grassroots organisations, community organisations, and the drive to net zero is not something that can be done by any individual organisation, but it requires community action at all levels. And when I was invited to speak last year, and it's great to be back, I said that there's a reason why Glasgow has the potential to pave the way for the just transition to net zero, and it's because I think our city has continued to embrace change through the centuries and innovation with it as well. And let me use my own institution as an example. We've seen some of the brightest, we've seen some of the best and pioneering inventors and innovators choosing to study, choosing to research and teach at the University of Glasgow. And in fact, next month we'll be kicking off celebrations of Lord Kelvin's bicentenary, the bicentenary of his birth, and one of my most famous alumni, and of course not only a great scientist, but also a fantastic application of that science, a fantastic engineer. And what we're going to be doing is evaluating Kelvin's legacy and how he shaped the future of learning and research in science and engineering and why this still matters today. And in line with today's theme, we'll also be looking at how Kelvin paved the way in some of the key technologies of the time, of course, technologies, communication technologies like the telegraph and many, many other inventions that he patented. And now, of course, 200 years later, or 150 years later from the time when he was actually active, we are actually, have a whole new range of technologies that we're wanting to adopt. And I'll shortly say a bit more on some of the vital R&D that's taking place at the university, which is supporting Scotland's drive to net zero. Now, innovation is, of course, also woven into the fabric of our city's heritage. We have a very proud history of shipbuilding and industry here in Glasgow, but Glasgow is now very much front and centre of some of the major high-potential technologies and sectors for the UK. In the last 5 years, Glasgow has consistently ranked in the top 20% of the top 100 most innovative cities in the world, ranked second in the UK behind London as an emerging tech destination. Around a third of Scotland's life sciences base is situated in the Glasgow city region and around the Central Belt, with more than 120 health startups. And in case you think health isn't related to net zero, it absolutely is. Climate change is going to bring some really difficult and wicked health challenges. So actually health innovation is there amongst net zero as far as I'm concerned. And the UK government has invested in 11 levelling up innovation accelerator projects across a range of areas, including in quantum technology, in virtual and extended reality, in fintech, in advanced engineering and precision oncology. And the city region is also going to be benefiting to the tune of around 160 million of funding through the Treasury's investment zone scheme in recognition of the strength that we have across Glasgow and the surrounding area. And great credit to the Glasgow Chamber for leading a lot of that work that led to our city being identified as one of the investment zones. And Glasgow also boasts 3 innovation districts, and in fact you're currently situated in the one that we helped to lead, the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District, or GRID as we call it, so welcome to GRID. I think it's fantastic to be here in SWG3. It's one of the University of Glasgow and GRID's key partners. There's so much that SWG3 and others like the BBC and Pacific Key just across the river can contribute to the development of Glasgow's cultural and creative economy, particularly as we seek to strengthen Glasgow's reputation in digital and creative technologies, something, again, that's a priority for my institution. And in terms of reaching net zero, there's a really important role here for the arts, for the humanities and social sciences. All too often this is seen as a technological challenge, but it isn't, it's a societal challenge. And there's a huge amount that people can do here, from Scotland's music industry and our social scientists to helping to understand consumer behaviours. And in fact, you really have to see some of the fantastic work that some of our students and some of our researchers are doing in this area of the arts and humanities and social sciences. Our colleagues in the Adam Smith Business School at the university have been working together with major industry partners on a global soil health programme. We're seeing people working in areas of consumer behaviour. So it's not just about STEM subjects, it's about what we call the shape disciplines, the humanities, the arts, that whole cultural area of cultural disciplines that really add to our society. Now here in GRID, we also see an opportunity to reimagine that proud Glaswegian industrial heritage that I mentioned earlier for the 21st century. GRID stretches across the River Clyde, encompassing a number of the city's key assets, including the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. However, GRID is also home to some of the highest levels of relative multi-deprivation in the UK. So it's a real challenge of driving that technological change, but also making sure that it benefits the communities that we have around the GRID, the Innovation District. And whilst we know that we've vast R&D and innovation strengths in the cities, we know that there's equally complex and stubborn socio-economic inequalities. And this is the kind of theme I know that Will Hutton tackled in his book, that it's not just about driving change, it's also how we can create a we society. And part of that is exactly what we face here in Glasgow. And that requires us to tackle in tandem the climate emergency and the ingrained social inequalities within our communities. There's no point aiming for a net zero future if we don't create opportunities for fairer outcomes in our most vulnerable communities. That societal change that transition will simply not be accepted unless we can do that. And we're therefore working collectively with our partners in the GRID, particularly Glasgow City Council and Scottish Enterprise, applying what we see as a quadruple helix approach: academia, industry, government and the local community, working hand in hand to drive sustainable economic growth. And we're focused from the outset on two core themes for GRID: life sciences and health, and sustainability. And let me come to the quadruple helix in a moment. I will share two examples which I think highlight this quadruple helix approach in practice. One example is actually showcased in the hall where you were having your lunch. It's our Gallant project, which sees the University's Centre for Sustainable Solutions, which is using Glasgow as a living lab to develop new sustainable solutions for the climate emergency. Gallant brings together a variety of organisations, including Glasgow City Council, the UK Research and Innovation Natural Environment Research Council, and local third sector and climate action groups together. It was launched in 2022 with £10 million of funding from the UK government, and Gallant is focused on 5 key themes: addressing flood risk, future biodiversity, tackling biodiversity loss, regenerating derelict and polluted land, improving active travel, and tackling sustainable energy through empowering local citizens. It's not only about the science, it's about how we actually apply that. And a key part of this over the last 2 years for Gallant and our researchers has been leading a series of workshops with Glasgow City Council officials and over 130 Glasgow-based organisations. This work culminated, as you see in this slide, with the launch of the Glasgow City Portrait in November last year. Essentially, it's a snapshot where the city currently lands in terms of environmental and social impact. And the portrait, I think, was really important because it outlines how Glasgow could become a home to thriving people in a thriving place while respecting the well-being of all people and the health of our planet. And importantly, it highlighted the relationship between the climate emergency and, as I said a moment ago, meeting the needs of local people. Colleagues hope that this blueprint can be used to help businesses in the city reframe their own practices. So it's about bringing some of these learnings to business and understanding what more businesses can do to reach net zero in a way which doesn't just benefit their bottom line, but also benefits local communities. Another example from the GRID is the development of our new Health Innovation Hub, just adjacent to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. And this hub, which we've started to develop very recently, will catalyse new innovations in healthcare and life sciences. It will provide space for some of Glasgow's most promising new spin-outs, like Chemify from the University of Glasgow, which received 36 million of international investment just in its first funding phase to use digital chemistry to promote faster and more efficient and more environmentally sustainable drug development for diseases like cancer. And importantly, the hub is also going to provide hundreds of jobs, ring-fenced for the local community in Govan, which is why, as I said, inclusivity is so important here, as well as opportunities for skills development with local college partners. So it's not just about universities, It's about how we can work with the local colleges to provide jobs within the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District. But you may well be wondering why this example matters in the context of net zero. As I said, health sometimes, you say, is that really net zero? Well, our transition to net zero will be the most radical economic transformation of our lifetime. Some of you will remember a report by McKinsey, the consultancy company in 2022, which estimated that the annual cost of getting to net zero by 2050 will be around $9.2 trillion, or about £6.8 trillion. And the world is already spending around $5.7 trillion a year to lower the impact of fossil fuels. However, McKinsey suggested that an extra $3.5 trillion is needed every year. So every year we need half of all corporate profits in 2020 and 1/4 of all tax revenue. That's a huge amount, or 7% of household spending as an investment. That's absolutely massive. And earlier this year, Chris Stark, who is formerly the chief executive of the UK's Climate Change Committee, he's now chair of the Carbon Trust, and he's an honorary professor at my university in our Centre for Public Policy. He said that the real fight is making the UK's economy competitive with other countries that are investing heavily, not only in renewable energy and electric vehicles and other green technologies, but actually across the board on innovation and investment to try and create those new industries that are going to thrive within that net zero world. And he said, and I quote, and this is really important, "We are talking about cleaning up the economy and making it more productive." It's that "and" bit which is just as important. And it's no surprise for me to say that the UK, it won't be a surprise to you if you hear me say that essentially the UK has a problem in this regard in terms of productivity growth. So if we want to achieve what Chris has just said in that statement, it's not only about investing in these net zero technologies, but also trying to create better productivity growth so that we actually have the resources to invest in what the transformation that our society needs. I was really struck by this aspect of Will Hutton's book, and I know will have talked to you earlier about his book, No More Mistakes, but he really does highlight the importance of driving productivity through the right kind of public investment, And Will rightly points out that both on the left and the right of the political spectrum, this is not a problem of any particular part of the political spectrum. We need to provide consistent governance, a consistent governance structure to put the country on a different and better track. We were just talking a moment ago during the break about the importance of trying to think of an economics ministry at the UK level. The approach the Treasury has perhaps taken as a finance ministry has drowned some of the join-up around productivity. Now, that's not going to be easy. These are large amounts of money that I've talked about. There is no magic money tree. Please do not listen to anybody who tells you there's an easy solution, because if they're usually trying to, it's snake oil economics generally. There is no easy solution here. And we've already seen, certainly in the UK and in the Scottish budget recently, just how difficult some of these choices can be. But there will be a need for society, I think, personally, to accept a higher cost in terms of taxation, to pay not only for public investment, but to crowd in some of that private investment. So telling people that it's all going to be all right and it's not going to cost you anything, I'm afraid, will not work. There's a real pressing need for private investment and industry going forward in ensuring that we're funding the R&D innovation that we need to reach net zero. And make no mistake, I include my own institution in this regard as well. I mentioned earlier to somebody that we did an evaluation of our own economic impact. We account for 4.4 billion annually in terms of economic output. We're one of the biggest economic agents in Scotland. We employ just under 12,000 people. We're one of the first universities in the UK to declare a climate emergency, and we launched our Glasgow Green Strategy in 2020 to try and really drive down towards net zero over the period to 2030. We're a signatory to the City's Sustainable Charter, and I'm pleased to say that this year we completed divestment from fossil fuels, a promise we made in 2014. And we're at the cutting edge of R&D in Scotland for net zero. For example, Professor David Flynn is part of a major new national research hub which will help to upgrade and decarbonise the UK's complex and interconnected transport infrastructures through technologies such as digital twins. We have 4 Glasgow projects that were awarded funding last year from the Scottish Government to focus on green hydrogen research, including a Glasgow Airport Hydrogen Innovation Hub, and to support the work that we do in Clyde Hydrogen, a university spin-out that's interested in low-emission, cutting-edge hydrogen production solutions. Or another Glasgow spin-out, Solasta Bio, which is led by our bioscientist, Professor Shireen Davis, which is looking at novel, next-generation green insecticides and pesticides. And not just in Glasgow, but in our campus in Dumfries, which hosts our School of Social and Environmental Sustainability, we have researchers looking at a broad variety of areas, from sustainable tourism to environmental risk and community resilience. And this year, we just launched 3 new research centres focused on public policy, on data science and AI, and sustainable energy, which is going to contribute towards our understanding of the climate emergency and the technologies required to reach net zero. And in fact, our colleagues from the Centre for Sustainable Energy will be contributing to many of the discussions at the All Energy Conference taking place at the SEC later this week. So if you are attending, please do visit their stall. And as I mentioned earlier, we see the grid as a massive opportunity to explore what more we can do, particularly to support the delivery of Clyde mission, particularly to encourage inclusive entrepreneur in the city. And last year, the grid was announced by the Scottish Government as Scotland's first ever whole systems innovation demonstrator as an innovation district. Known as Grid Discovery, this initiative is going to allow the university to work with partners to remove some of the traditional barriers to innovating quickly. It will see us create a series of innovation testbeds and pilots, and this could, for example, see us work with researchers and industry to create solutions to tackle emissions from the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital and many other projects. And today, this really is a call for interested businesses. I'm here to really tell you, do get in touch if you're looking to trial new innovations and products within our Glasgow Riverside Innovation District. Our Economic Development and Innovation team would be delighted to hear from you. We are a test bed. We're here to try things out, and we'll work with you in partnership. And in terms of our role in getting the city to net zero, we're also committed to ensuring our students are equipped with the skills. That was one of the questions in the Slido that Greg showed. Yeah. Absolutely, we're doing that. I actually wanted to answer all of the above because, yes, we are going to give the students these skills, but it's not just about that. We know that our commitment to create the workforce of the future is important, but it's also across a broad range of activities. And finally, and perhaps my most important message, is that innovating to net zero requires collaboration across the board. No single body, no single business, no single institution is going to be able to do this alone. It requires collective creativity. It requires a collaborative spirit. So we launched, together with the University of Edinburgh, we catalysed a new initiative last year called Scotland Beyond Net Zero. And the reason we did it, it was back in January actually, it wasn't last year, it was back in January. And this initiative was really not just exclusive between Edinburgh and Glasgow. We're going to show you a short film in a moment. But it was really an invitation to other universities, to other partners across Scotland, to come together, to share knowledge, to catalyse research and better inform policymakers. So I'd like to finish by showing you a clip that we put together for the launch of Scotland Beyond Net Zero, and hopefully this will play if those controlling the slides can show you. So you didn't hear the audio there, which is a shame because it had some nice music, but you saw in the subtitles the key messages. As you can see, what we think we have as a responsibility as Scotland's two biggest universities and the biggest research and development powerhouses. We feel we have a responsibility to catalyse some of the work in this area. So we're coalescing around key themes: clean energy, storage, decarbonisation, green transport, community empowerment and climate justice. And I'm delighted also that the other institutions in the city of Glasgow, Strathclyde, Glasgow Caledonian universities are also signatories to this initiative, which Edinburgh and ourselves launched, and will, of course, provide their valuable expertise to this mission. So, to conclude, I think there's a lot of work to be done. There's a huge amount of work, particularly here in Glasgow, but we have, I think, a duty as a community to come together and grasp this opportunity with both hands. We have a real history of ingenuity, of innovation here in the city. We've shown that through the centuries, but we now need to, I think, capture this opportunity. So I look forward to the discussion with Greg. Thank you.
Great.